There are songs that build to a climax, and there are albums with many songs that build to many climaxes. Climaxes? Climi? So much so that they require a calm after the storm. Geordie Greep created the storm and gave his audience an essential come down. The new sound leaves you feeling like Tracy Emin's bed. I filmed my first ever listen, and the video ended with me covered in sweat, alcohol, surrounded by smoke. I was in my own apocalyptic hell, and although I weathered the storm by taking a few deep breaths and repeating the word what I really needed to do was drive to the beach and lie on the sand next to the ocean at midnight with a cool breeze blowing across my chest. I'm going to talk about the new sound. I record my first reaction and then I edit the video, and I have to listen intently for a couple of days. This is important. Other people who review music come from a similar point of view as you. They listen to the music and tell you whether they enjoyed it or not. I come from a different place. A place of self-inflicted artistic repetition, or sometimes mutilation. I have music forced upon me again and again and again during that edit. I need to truly understand the album while I'm working on the audio and the visuals to accompany it. My immediate reaction at the end of a first listen, I mean how I look and what I say, lets you know how I felt about an album. Spoilers, at the end of the new sound, I said that this might be the best album I've ever listened to. However, we all know how we can misuse superlatives in the throes of ecstasy. I don't do any research prior to my reactions. It's just the way I did things in the beginning, and I continued like that for hundreds of episodes. It attracts a few negative remarks, but overall, people appreciate the concept of someone putting music on and just enjoying it. My impressions of an album are all the more honest for it. Maybe. And yet I believe that to truly understand an album, you need the context. I know that sounds contrary from someone who flashes "no research" across the screen when he's listening to music. But knowledge can alter perception. I listened to Black Midi's 3 albums, and along with bands like Black Country New Road, I like the spirit that's out there in the UK music scene. Black Midi's albums in particular were pretty wild, and they kind of went hand in hand with my attempts to listen to all of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard's output. I loved the eclectic nature of Black Midi's music and the sheer bombastic scope of the vision. Geordie Greep especially stood out as an old head on young shoulders. He embodied Ian Curtis, David Byrne, Jarvis Cocker, Morrissey, Peter Gabriel, Frank Zappa. The Black Midi vibe was Miles Davis does 2020's UK music. So it turns out that Black Midi split up. I vaguely remember hearing something about it. In my youth, I used to buy and read the NME and the Melody Maker weekly. They were old, long forgotten music newspapers. These days I struggle with time, and therefore I am genuinely the person who listens to your favourite bands but doesn't back it up with watching live videos or reading around the subject. I can hand on heart not know what the singer of your favourite band looks like unless they put their photo in the gatefold sleeve. Part of my purposeful lack of research, but also because there are not enough hours in the day. So Black Midi split up. It seems like it was because the band didn't get on. Not necessarily a problem. Some of my favourite albums were recorded by people who did not get on. But there were only 3 primary members of Black Midi. And Geordie Greep recorded a few songs on the new sound using Black Midi's drummer on drums. This suggests to me then, by process of elimination, that Geordie Greep didn't get along with Cameron Picton. Or maybe it wasn't so black and white. A bit of Googling suggests Cameron has some solo stuff going on, and that's also pretty good. Geordie Greep was born in Walthamstow, London, in 1999. To put that into perspective, I was in Walthamstow, in London, in 1999, mastering an album that I'd recorded. I'm not claiming any role in Geordie's creation, simply because of my proximity to his inception. I'm just emphasising how I am a different generation. A different generation!
Perspective? Too much perspective!
That's the thing with listening to music that the target audience would say isn't for you. It's often more comfortable than they'd believe. They think they're listening to this new sound, but it turns out that the new sound is just like the old sound.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
I think what Geordie Greep means with the new sound is that he's drawing a line under Black Midi. I heard Latin American influences, so there's certainly a new sound of sorts, but I also heard the mania of Black Midi. Therefore I guess Geordie Greep is musical chaos. He wears the fires of hell as a coat of Dulux oblivion. The new sound. The opening track, Blues, sounded really Black Midi to me. It builds and builds and produces that frantic feeling that makes you want to pull both your arms off and shove them up your ass, one after the other. Not sure how you'd do that. You'd need to use your feet. Geordie states the version on the record is the only time they ever played the song in full. I like that. It's kinda old school Miles Davis. He was doing it back before it became a thing. Today, everyone is at home on laptops, creating music that has never been played live in its entirety. Rewind to bands recording in expensive studios and they'd need to have that song practiced within an inch of its life. Now, a band can walk in with nothing and let digital editing create art from musical soup. I noticed a lot of in-your-face, sometimes literally, sexual references. I kept saying how down and dirty the record was. I said you could smell the which means that Geordie Greep managed to paint his musical picture so well that I imagined I could smell the on the canvas. That takes some doing. Geordie wanted to, quote, make as many bizarre, grotesque love songs as possible. I describe the album as being made for me. In the cold light of day, when I'm not soused in Prosecco and lager, and the atmosphere is free of smoke, saying a twisted album is tailor-made for you might sound twisted, but I stand by it. One of my favourite paintings is The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. Need I say more? Funnily enough, little is known about Hieronymus Bosch, so a lot of the criticism of his work has no context to work from.
The art reviewers talking about Bosch are like the Mercurial No. 6 reacting to music.
Sex and the Latin American influence. I read on the record sleeve that some of the new sound was recorded in Sao Paulo. Research time. Sao Paulo is a city in Brazil and one of the largest cities in the world. It has a population of over 12 million. Now actually, I was surprised to learn when I was doing this research that Tokyo in Japan is the largest city in the world with a population of 13.5 million. I find London claustrophobic enough, especially Harrods Food Hall, and that's only 9 million. In the country, not just in the food hall. Anyway, I like the authenticity of recording Latin American sounding music in a Latin American studio. It's like the time I was in Cadbury World in Birmingham and I was eating a chocolate bar next to a human-sized plastic bunny. Just the same. Just the same. Blues tells the story of a man who tells tall stories to himself. A man who bigs himself up, but reality is never too far away. At least I think that the guy knows he's kidding himself. If he doesn't know that, then it's the story of a truly delusional man who has the potential to be a truly dangerous man. It seems to be based on a real person, as Geordie specifically describes the guy as using the phrase, "Do you know what I mean?" Do you know what I mean? That's a phrase most associated with Frank Bruno in this country. Boxer, fought Mike Tyson a couple of times. He used to say, "Do you know what I mean, Harry? Do you know what I mean, Harry?" all the time in interviews. It was because he was always being interviewed by a man called Harry. There was an old TV blooper where Bruno said, "Do you know what I mean, Harry? Do you know what I mean, Harry?" 100 times in a 3-minute interview after a boxing match. And then ended by saying, "You're not Harry." Hilarious. That's the kind of comedy we had in this country before TikTok. The album continues with Terror. This track brings to mind the Holy Bible by the Manic Street Preachers. That depressed mindset and the turning of the camera on oneself. Looking at the world and only seeing the shit hitting the fan. Terror, without Firma, is like the house the pig built out of straw. Terrible construction. The wolf was happy. Holy Holy was the single. On the first listen, I assumed it was about a couple who've been together a long time, trying to get some excitement back in their relationship. Meeting up at a pub and pretending they're meeting for the first time. But it's the "how much will that cost" that I didn't latch onto. How much will that cost? That makes the song a story about a man who has to pay a woman to overtly show she's interested in him. Then the lyrics make sense. It's another tale of a man bigging himself up, making himself sound better and more important than he really is. Then you realise there's a theme here. 3 songs in, and there's a definite theme. Toxic masculinity? So at this point I have to question my original assertion that this album is about down and dirty sex. It might just be an album about no sex at all. It might be an album about delusion and self-hate. Then we have the title track, The New Sound. This one reminds me of Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys because it's an instrumental. Or more likely, it's just got sound in the title. I think Geordie is being classic here. He knew he needed an instrumental called The New Sound, and that's exactly what he gave himself. Walk Up had such mid-70s production value, kind of like Geordie Greep working with Bob Ezrin. I almost expected Mr. Greep to have a boa constrictor wrapped around his neck, hanging out with Vincent Price. Kind of Alice Cooper reference there. Some choice lyrics too. Genuinely made me laugh out loud. And the ending was a what the f*** moment. Through a War starts with talk of drinking. Tonight we're gonna drink till I look like Hercules. The perfect song for a Mercurial No. 6 reaction. And some absolutely choice lyrics. Have you seen a woman give birth to a goat? Do you know how to fashion a boat out of bones? My favourite was probably, I would have disemboweled myself just to hold your hand. Reminded me of a lyric by Coldplay in one of their Pretty songs, which is why I do give Coldplay some credit sometimes. For you, I'd bleed myself dry. I obviously have a thing for aspects of love combined with acts of bodily mutilation, and I like Hieronymus Bosch.
Bongo season tells the story of suicidal mice. It is what it is.
The next song, Motorbike, starts like a mashup of Don't Speak and Wide Open Space. The lyrics mention a trembling chest poking out through the gaps between the buttons of a shirt. I was naturally assuming a female chest, but most of the time I look down and notice that I've got so fat my chest is always poking out through the gaps between the buttons of my shirt. And sometimes it's trembling. I have no idea what Motorbike is about. It's not completely clear. It's probably a story of a man buying a motorbike and leaving his woman in the throes of a midlife crisis. I had a similar story. I bought a record player and some beer and I filmed reactions in the throes of a midlife crisis. Nice voice though. Not Geordie Greep. Seth Evans, touring member of Black Midi and producer of this record. I'm not sure why he's singing. He probably wrote more of the song than Geordie, therefore sung it, Beatles style. But I like his voice. Good choice. Weird choice for your solo record to let him sing, but good choice. The song has a phenomenal explosion of sound after a quiet bit. The Pixies would be proud. I think Motorbike would be great to soundtrack a scene from Severance. As If Waltz has a cool 90s vibe. I remember drinking beer and watching My Name Is Mud by Primus on MTV. 30 years from now, long after I'm gone, some kid from today is going to be reminiscing about listening to As If Waltz. On my first listen, I was being reminded of Pulp, Babies, and Do You Remember the First Time specifically? 30 years ago. Music life seems to cycle in 30-year periods. I hear elements of bands, acts, like The Divine Comedy and Badly Drawn Boy. It would be interesting to know how Geordie Greep feels about those bands. I know that he had a bit of an emotional experience when he first heard Franz Ferdinand. As If Waltz has a great freak-out guitar solo. I'm not going to lie to you, I am partial to a guitar solo. As If Waltz is definitely a highlight of the album. Then we go into the centrepiece of the album, at least it would be if it were in the centre. A 12.5-minute song with a vibe of Fergal Sharkey backed by Nick Drake. The Magician. A song that was originally performed live by Black Midi. I don't know how different it was from the version on this record. To me, this song is about inevitability. This is a song explaining that the worst thing that could happen will usually happen. This is a song about paranoia and blaming yourself for everything that ever went wrong. This is a song about repetition. This is a song about repetition, going through the motions of life. This is a song about feeling lonely in a crowded room, being a magician and magicking yourself up an imaginary life and making yourself disappear. Then we're into the final song. If You Are But a Dream. A song that I said reminded me of Charlie Chaplin's Smile. If You Are But a Dream. What's interesting is that I thought Geordie had written it as an old-fashioned song to go with his old head on young shoulders moniker. But in fact, it really is an old song. 1942, kind of an old Frank Sinatra song. So Geordie ends this chaotic solo album with a calm, thoughtful cover of an old classic. This is a really great closer. Geordie goes for an open all hours vibe. Older UK viewers might know what I mean. Brass bands. I love the whole package of the song. Just thinking about it now makes me want to go and read Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. Geordie ends his album telling us that if the woman he loves is a dream, then he hopes he never wakes up. Maybe this album is more romantic than I originally gave it credit. It comes across as the internal ramblings of a man alone in a room with a laptop. Someone who cares what the world... Yeah, that's right. Someone who cares what the world thinks of him. Who will do anything to come across as bigger, stronger, sexier, more confident. But taken as a whole, it also paints a picture of free-thinking obliteration. As I said when I first listened to it, the listener becomes the destroyer of worlds. The destroyer of worlds. And an album that puffs your chest out like a pompous pigeon is an album that deserves to exist. Among the billion stars
It has earned its right to shine.
I'll give the new sound 8 refrigerators out of a nuclear blast.